There are moments in life when everything you've spent decades building, everything you've trusted, can disappear in just 48 hours. This is the story of David, a 47-year-old man from Nashville, Tennessee, a devoted father of three, a faithful husband, and a successful business owner who thought he was doing everything right. But in March of 2022, David's entire world collapsed in a way he never saw coming. And what happened next brought him to his knees, literally. If you're watching this while facing your own impossible situation, while wondering if God has forgotten you, while you can barely keep your head above water, David's story is for you, because what he's about to share might just be the hope you desperately need right now. For 23 years, David ran a commercial construction company in Nashville. It wasn't a flashy life, but it was a good one. A 3-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood, 2 cars in the driveway, his 3 kids, Emily, 16, Jake, 13, and little Sarah, 9, attended good schools. Every Sunday, David and his wife Jennifer sat in the 3rd row at their church. He tithed faithfully. He prayed before every business decision. He believed that if you honored God, worked hard, and treated people right, things would work out. David's business partner, Tom, had been his best friend since their college days at University of Tennessee. They built the construction company from absolutely nothing, just 2 guys with a pickup truck and a dream. 23 years later, they had 23 employees and annual revenue over $2 million. David trusted Tom completely. They were like brothers. But trust, as David was about to learn, can be a dangerous thing. In early March 2022, David started noticing small things that didn't add up. Invoices that clients said they'd paid, but the money never appeared in their accounts. Vendors calling about late payments David knew nothing about. He mentioned it to Tom casually one afternoon. Tom laughed it off. "Accounting errors, man. I'll handle it." David believed him. He shouldn't have. On Tuesday, March 15, 2022, at 9:17 in the morning, 2 FBI agents walked into David's office. They weren't there to ask questions. They were there to inform him that his business partner, Tom, his best friend of 25 years, had been systematically embezzling from their company for the past 3 years, over $800,000 gone. Tom had created fake vendor accounts, forged David's signature on documents, routed company funds to offshore accounts. And because David's name was on every business license, every tax document, every loan, David was legally responsible for all of it. Within 48 hours, everything David had built evaporated. The company's bank accounts were frozen by the federal government. The IRS placed liens on his personal assets, his home, his cars, everything. Their business was immediately shut down. 23 employees, many of them friends, lost their jobs overnight. And Tom, he'd already fled the country, vanished, gone. Just like that, David's entire life collapsed. That Friday night, David sat at his kitchen table, staring at a stack of legal documents, bankruptcy filings, lawsuit notices, IRS demands, criminal investigation subpoenas. His wife Jennifer sat across from him, tears streaming down her face, their life savings wiped out, their retirement accounts seized. They were going to lose their home. "How did you not see this?" Jennifer whispered. Her voice wasn't angry. It was worse than angry. It was broken, hollow, like she was looking at a stranger. David had no answer. Their daughter Emily, 16, had been listening from the stairs. She came into the kitchen, her eyes red. "Does this mean I can't go to college?" David couldn't even look at her. The following weeks felt like drowning in slow motion. Lawyers, depositions, federal investigators. news reporters calling their house, showing up at their door. David's face ended up in the local paper next to words like fraud and investigation. Friends from church stopped calling. Maybe they didn't know what to say, or maybe they just didn't want to be associated with the mess. David and Jennifer had to pull all 3 kids out of their schools. They sold both cars and bought one beat-up Honda Civic. Jennifer took a job at Target, working register shifts at 47 years old, just so they could buy groceries. And David? He couldn't find work anywhere. Nobody wanted to hire the guy whose name was attached to an FBI investigation. He sent out 83 job applications in 2 months. He got 3 responses, all rejections. 3 months into this nightmare, on a June evening, David sat alone in their garage at 2 a.m. He couldn't sleep, hadn't really slept in weeks. The house they'd lived in for 12 years was going into foreclosure in 30 days. Jennifer had stopped talking to him beyond what was absolutely necessary. His kids looked at him with a mixture of confusion and disappointment that broke something inside him every single day. That night, sitting in the dark garage, David looked up at the rafters, and for the first time in his life, he understood why people give up. He wasn't thinking clearly. He was thinking about how his family would be better off with the life insurance money than with him. How he'd destroyed everything. How he'd failed everyone who ever counted on him. He sat there for 3 hours, wrestling with thoughts he never imagined he'd have. And then, at 5 a.m, something inside him cracked open. Not broke, cracked open. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have hope. He didn't even really have faith anymore. But somewhere deep in his chest, a voice, maybe his own, maybe God's, he honestly didn't know, whispered, "Pray." He hadn't prayed, really prayed, in months. He'd been too angry, too betrayed, too ashamed. But that morning, David got on his knees on that cold concrete garage floor, and he prayed the most honest prayer of his entire life. God, I don't even know if you're listening. I don't know if you care. I don't know why you let this happen to me. I did everything right. I went to church. I tithed. I trusted the wrong person, and now my whole life is destroyed. I've got nothing left. No money, no job, no reputation. My wife barely looks at me. My kids are scared. I'm about to lose our home. I can't fix this. I've tried everything and I can't fix this. So if you're real, if you're actually there, I need you to show up. Because I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I surrender. I'm letting go. This is yours now. All of it. The debt, the shame, the fear, the anger. I can't carry it anymore. If you can do something with this mess, then do it, because I'm completely out of options. Amen. David stayed on his knees in that garage for another hour. He didn't hear a voice. He didn't see a vision. He didn't feel some overwhelming supernatural presence. But something shifted. For the first time in 3 months, he felt like he could breathe. The next morning, David told Jennifer everything he'd been feeling. The dark thoughts, the despair, the prayer in the garage. She cried. They both cried. And for the first time since everything collapsed, they prayed together. They decided that even if they lost everything, they wouldn't lose each other. They wouldn't lose their family. 2 days later, something unexpected happened. David got a phone call from a man named Robert, someone he'd worked with 7 years ago on a commercial project. Robert had heard about what happened to David through the industry grapevine. "I know you didn't do what they're saying you did," Robert said. "I know your character, and I've got a project that needs someone I can trust. It's not glamorous, it's project management for a warehouse renovation, but it pays decent. You interested?" David almost couldn't speak. Yes, absolutely yes. It wasn't much, but it was something, a lifeline when he had nothing. The job started 2 weeks later. The pay was half what David used to make, but it was honest work. It was hope. And then, 3 weeks after that, David's lawyer called with news he never expected. The FBI had concluded their investigation. After months of forensic accounting, they determined that David had no knowledge of Tom's embezzlement. The evidence was clear. Tom had acted alone, had deliberately hidden everything from David. All criminal charges against David were dropped. The civil lawsuits were still there, the debt was still massive, but David was no longer facing prison. His name was cleared. Over the next 18 months, David and Jennifer rebuilt their life piece by piece. They lost the house, that was inevitable, but they found a smaller rental in a good neighborhood. The kids adjusted to their new schools. Emily got a partial scholarship to community college and worked part-time to cover the rest. David worked his way up at Robert's company. His reputation for integrity, even after everything he'd been through, earned him respect. Within a year, he was managing multiple projects and making close to what he used to earn. Jennifer and David started going to a small church closer to their rental, a place where nobody knew their story, where they could just be a family trying to find their way back. They made a decision together. They would never again measure their worth by what they owned. Their value wasn't in their house, their cars, their bank account, or their status. Their value was in their faith, in each other, in their family. One Sunday morning, about 2 years after everything fell apart, David stood in their little rental kitchen making pancakes with Sarah. Jennifer was reading on the couch. Emily and Jake were arguing about something ridiculous upstairs. And David realized something profound. He was happy. Not because life was perfect, it wasn't. They still had debt, they still had struggles, but they had each other, they had hope, they had faith. And for the first time in years, David felt genuinely grateful. David's story isn't about getting everything back. It's about losing everything and discovering what actually matters. He learned that sometimes God doesn't stop the collapse. Sometimes He lets you fall all the way to the bottom so you'll finally stop trying to control everything and let Him take over. He learned that surrender isn't weakness, it's the beginning of real strength. And he learned that when you have nothing left but God, you discover that God is enough. If you're in your darkest hour right now, if you've lost everything or you're about to, if you feel like God has abandoned you, David wants you to know He hasn't. Sometimes the breaking is where the blessing begins. This story was inspired by real testimonies from believers who've walked through financial collapse and found God's faithfulness on the other side. If David's journey gave you hope today, we'd love for you to subscribe to Faith Through Fire. Every week, we share stories like this: real struggles, real faith, real hope. And if you're facing your own impossible situation right now, leave a comment below. You're not alone. This community is here for you. Remember, when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. God's got you, even when it doesn't feel like it.